Welcome back to America's Forum. Libya remains a country in turmoil today as fierce fighting continues to engulf that nation. Armed gunmen stormed the country's interim parliament Sunday in the capital of Tripoli. At least 2 people killed, 66 injured in the attack. It's been some of the worst violence in that area since the ouster of Muammar Gaddafi. And now joining us for our daily intelligence brief, my old colleague from Capitol Hill, the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Pete Hoekstra of Michigan. Pete, thanks once again for Skyping in today here on America's Forum.
Hey, great to be back with you, JD.
So, Pete, when we take a look at Libya, are we now witnessing a country on the very brink of civil war?
Well, I think almost ever since Gaddafi was overthrown, we're witnessing a country that may not be on a full-fledged civil war, but a country that doesn't have a strong central government that is maintaining law and order in whatever form they describe it there in Libya. And here's why it's so critical. Libya is the northern part of Africa. It provides access to the soft underbelly of Europe for jihadists and radical groups to go into Europe and to, foment revolution, foment attacks in Europe. And the other thing that you now have is you've got Libya, when you're looking south, even under Muammar Gaddafi, it's hard to believe, but it was a stabilizing force for northern Africa. So it protected southern Europe. It protected, northern Africa, and it's now totally destabilized. You got to worry about when the radical jihadists come and say they're the ones that are going to defend Parliament against attack. Yes, Libya is very close to civil war, and a civil society is really totally broken down in Libya today.
So we noted the violence in Tripoli over the weekend. Meantime, the death toll rising in Benghazi as well. We understand the U.S. military preparing now to evacuate American citizens. Pete, is it to the point that the American embassy in Libya should be closed?
We're probably getting close to that point. We saw the Saudis have pulled their folks out. You would have thought that might have been one of the safer.
Closed?
We're probably getting close to that point. We saw the Saudis have pulled their folks out. You would have thought that might have been one of the safer embassies in Tripoli, but the Saudis have pulled out. And so we're probably, we won't pull all of our folks out. We'll keep a skeleton staff, but we're probably at that point.
That the United States and other nations, to be fair about it, are reduced to the role of observers, despite the geopolitical importance of Libya and what this vacuum portends for the future. If you had to gaze into a crystal ball, Pete, and we understand that that intelligence gathering is a science as well as an art. If you could look down the road here for the next couple of months, what happens in Libya?
Well, I think what happens is that, the average person on the street, they're going to start yearning for some stability and security back in their lives. And so what you may see is a facade of some elections and some new government formation. But what they're going to be looking for is a strong man to come in, a facade of some elections and some new government formation. But what they're going to be looking for is worrying about full democracy, representation, a fully functioning parliament, and all of those kinds of things. They just want the basics. They want security. They want to be able to walk their streets, and they may go back and say the only way we're going to get that is if we have a strong central ruler that can tap down these factions and can tap down excuse me. The only way we're going to get that is if we have a strong central ruler that can tap down these factions and can tap down the various jihadist elements throughout this country.
So, Pete, we're basically looking at Gaddafi, the sequel, not someone from his family.
Out of the realm of possibility. Remember, Libya was thrown together not because of some conscious, construct that said this really makes a lot of sense. Somebody in Europe carved up the lines, drew the lines, threw together a bunch of groups and bunch of tribes of folks that didn't necessarily have any affinity to each other, and all of a sudden they're part of a country. A strong man like Gaddafi was able to bring that together, bring security, and all of a sudden they're part of a country. A strong man like Gaddafi was able to bring that together, bring security and stability to the people of Libya. Not much else, but he brought that, and once he's gone, that security, that stability, not only in Libya, but as you to that part of the world.
Pete, let's continue from the Africa file, this time switching nation states. We talked about it yesterday, Nigeria. Now, you and I talked about it yesterday. There is a report that our nation and Nigeria have reached a deal to share intelligence in an effort to find those kidnapped schoolgirls taken by Boko Haram. What is your take on that?
Well, hallelujah. It's 5 weeks too late. Again, you have a weak central government out of Abuja that can't control the radical jihadists in the northern part of the country. So you have the kidnapping of 300 girls. The government is unwilling to ask for assistance because by admitting that they need assistance, they're telling the world, you know, we can't control our borders. We can't control our own internal security assistance. They're telling the world, you know, we can't control our borders. We can't control our own internal security. So they were very, very reluctant to go down that road. International pressure, the offer of assistance from the United States, and finally, you know, your crisis. But boy, 5 weeks after the actual kidnapping, it's going to be hard to put all those pieces back in the box and to get those girls back home safely. It's going to be very, very difficult.
And Pete, another factor here, something you and I discussed yesterday, but it's worth reiterating, and that is the fact that the Nigerian president, Goodluck Jonathan, a year ago offered the admission or the observation that he thought Boko Haram had basically infiltrated government and the military. So the challenge for the United States is sharing intelligence but not revealing sources and methods. Can we be successful in really sharing this with a government its own president says has been infiltrated by the terrorists?
No, we can speak from experience. We know that from the work that our intelligence community has done in Pakistan, that it's done in Afghanistan, that it is done in Iraq. These governments are infiltrated. Our intelligence people have to know that going into discussions with the intelligence folks in these countries, including now Nigeria, that there is a high probability of whatever they share will be discovered or will be shared with the bad guys in their country. It's a very, very awkward position to be in, you know, because you're asking to make decisions and to do action based on input and intelligence that you've gathered. And the first thing that people are going to ask is, well, where did you gather that from? In places like Nigeria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, you can't share that information with the indigenous intelligence communities because they are infiltrated. So it's, you know, it's a very tight line that our intelligence folks are going to have to walk in Nigeria one more time. They've got experience doing it. They ought to be able to do it, but it's hard.
Well, I'm tempted to ask, what is the upside? We understand the humanitarian impulse to try and get these girls back and to somehow reduce the power and influence of Boko Haram. But if we're in a situation where sources and methods get exposed to yet another terrorist group, it's tough to find an upside right there, Pete.
Well, no, but the upside is you get a footprint into the region to go after radical jihadist groups like Boko Haram. But what you make sure you do is you don't share sources and methods. I maybe didn't state that clearly enough, because you know that if you do, they will be compromised. So you don't share that kind of vital intelligence information that if you lose it, people will die. You bottom line, you don't share it. You just have to go in and say, we know this. We're not telling you how we found out about it. We just need to incorporate this information as we plan our tactics moving forward. Also knowing that as you move forward, there's a probability as we plan our tactics moving forward. Also knowing that as you move forward, there's a probability that whatever actions you decide on, whatever interventions you decide on, the bad guys may know before you actually implement them.
Fair enough. About a minute left. We talked about this with Jim Woolsey, but I want your take.
Yeah.
Putin in China today, in about 30 seconds' time, what is Putin looking for?
Oh, he's looking for, a great meeting, perhaps a natural gas deal. If he gets a natural gas deal, he'll go back to Moscow fully empowered. Europe will be sitting there saying, "Whoa, the gas that we're now getting, if we cut it off, he's now found a new user for it." Again, Putin's playing all of his cards right. I hate admitting it. I hate saying it. But if that's the truth, we got to call it as we see it.
And you call it as you see it, Pete Hoekstra, and for that, we are very grateful. We appreciate your daily intelligence brief and the insights and analysis you offer to us here on America's Forum. Thanks so much, Pete.
Yep. See you, JD.
All right, so you hear Pete's take on things. What do you think? Why don't you tweet me your comments at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum.